You are live. That's what this thing on across the screen said to me. Did it say that for you, Tim?
It says that we are live.
That means people are listening, and that's wonderful. How's it going, dude?
That's great. How about yourself? How's your week?
Okay, so recently adopted a new puppy. I have no idea what day of the week it is anymore. I think we're pretty close to the things that we need to get her trained on. But yeah, I remember texting you last night being like, oh, tomorrow's Thursday. We have to record. So here we are. You? What about you?
Oh, it's good, man. I'm
getting ready for Boston.
Getting ready for Boston. I just so I'm getting into the thick of training. So 9 miles this morning.
For those of you listening, Tim is going to run his second Boston Marathon. Obviously, we sometimes talk about the parallels between business and fitness. What are you learning right now, just as you're preparing for this race, this run in early April that maybe you weren't thinking about before?
Well, I enjoy running in winter and training in winter versus in the heat of Virginia summers. That's one. But in terms of business parallels, I mean, it all comes down to discipline. I mean, it's just you have to have the discipline to do the things that have to be done every single day. And you don't know, or you can't necessarily see the improvements that are made on a day-to-day basis. And then if, as you trust your training plan along the way, magically at the end of 12 weeks or however long your training plan is, everything comes together and it works. But you gotta keep all those negative thoughts out of your head and trust your training. It will work if you put the work in.
Trust the process. There is I believe it was the Philadelphia 76ers. They kept sucking for many, many years in basketball, and they kept
trust the process.
And they kept saying trust the process. Well, they still haven't won, and now they're in a weird thing. But they're definitely a better team. They're not a bottom feeder, if you will. But it's interesting how it's kind of like, here's what we're going to do. This is what I want to do, and if you trust this process, it's very likely that the outcome will happen at some point in the future. It's when you sway away from that's different. I would imagine that's very similar to putting together a production, a movie production, where it's like, hey, we have to put all these different scenes together. We have to write it. We have to find the cast. We have to record it. We have to shoot it. And then we have to edit it. And then things get tweaked and yada, 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 yada. And I'm just thinking as I'm saying that, recording an episode of the Fervent Four Show like this, and how simple edits this is compared to then a full-on production.
So raw, what we do.
Yeah, it's like, here it is. And we are grateful to be joined today by Butch Maier of Sumbadhat Productions. Very clever name. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point, because you're not wearing a hat right now.
And I typically don't. I would like to keep my hair, so I'd figure that's a strategy. If I don't wear a hat, maybe.
Is that a thing?
Well, I'm curious. It's like, because people that are receding, they wear a hat to hide it. So do you wear a hat to hide it if it already started, or do you not wear it in hopes to keep it? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. Most of the men in my family have gone bald, and so I just know it's inevitable. I have a little spot.
Oh. But we can't see it. Don't worry.
But I'm not going to do the comb over. I'm not going to wear a piece, which is interesting. My next movie has to do with hairline. So little plug, so to speak.
So at the point that it potentially does happen for you, you'll just go straight bald.
I might shave it because if it's already going, might as well just get rid of it. But
you could do the economist look, where the top is gone and then you grow the beard with it, and
there you go. It kind of looks like a hair avalanche. It just falls off the top of the peak and just falls down onto your face.
Hair is a very it's a very interesting just thing in general, where it's you can't really control it, I guess, unless you're Jeff Bezos, who apparently went bald and then now is full head.
Dude, have you seen how buff he is in the pictures that just surfaced? That dude is.
Well, he hangs out with The Rock now, so that's probably.
No, really? Yeah, he's stacked.
he can afford a gym membership. So those are kind of expensive. So if you have the means,
Yeah. And there's rumor that Amazon may buy Peloton. Who knows?
Oh, really? Is that what?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about Sumbadhat Hat. Sumbadhat Hat's an independent production company based in Virginia Beach. And we make unique movies, and not just one genre, but a whole bunch of different genres. The name Sumbadhat Hats, people wonder where that comes from. My fascination with movies started when I was very young. My family took a summer trip to North Carolina, and we went to the beach the first day. And that night we went to see this little movie called Jaws. And I didn't go back onto the beach, much less into the water the rest of the week, because I was that terrified. It was that much of an impact. And that's when my fascination with Jaws began. And there's a line from the movie where the chief is paranoid about the shark, and he starts looking in the water and seeing, people splashing about, and sees this figure, and it's an old man with a bathing cap, and the man comes to shore and says, "We know all about you, Chief. You don't go in the water at all." And the chief says, "That's Sumbadhat, Harry." And it's just an offhanded line, but Sumbadhat just stuck with me, and I spell it the way that I do, SUMBADHAT, because otherwise it looks like so me bad hat. And so I just, that was the way that I chose to spell it. And started this production company and decided to become a filmmaker.
Was Jaws immediately a big hit, or did it take time to?
No, it was word of mouth. Back in those days, of course, you didn't have the internet. So, once it got out there were quickly lines around the block. And I've seen pictures, that is not exaggerating. There were lines around the block of people waiting to get into this movie. It was that much of an impact, and it just had that much.
That was late 70s, right?
1975 is when it came out.
75. And when did Sumbadhat? When did you start your company?
So in 2006 is when I started Sumbadhat, when I was living in Ohio. And
wow.
I started writing screenplays before that, actually, right after college. You're in college and you have these structured, you go to class, you have all your time basically covered going to hang out with friends, and then you get out of college and it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to go to class. I do have to get a job. I don't have a job yet. I have a little bit of money. I'm going to go to the movie theater. I go to the movie theater, and I got a job at a video rental store. If you've ever heard of those, it was not the famous one.
Isn't that how Quentin Tarantino started as well?
Yes, I'm doing everything. I'm just copying Quentin, basically. I'm making Kill Bill 3 next.
Because I think the only local video store still around, at least the last time I thought about it, was Narrow. Right? Are they still around?
I think they closed a little bit ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is sad, because that was wonderful. I mean, you could find some movies that you'd never heard of and seen before, and I would love going there when I was.
Is the actual theater closed too?
No, the theater is open.
It's the theater's open. I
actually plan to premiere my third feature this summer at the Narrow, and that movie's called Kill Devil Hills. It's a horror thriller that we shot not in Kill Devil Hills, but in Virginia Beach. I got some drone footage of Kill Devil Hills, and I've gotten some mixed reaction from the people in OBX going, "Wait a minute, you filmed this at Virginia Beach. Why didn't you film it here?" But
well, there's a hit show on Netflix called OBX, or Outer Banks, and I believe that was recorded in California. So,
yeah. And it came out right after I shot Kill Devil Hills, and it was like, oh, that's great timing. Not really.
Yeah, it looks like the Narrow closed in 2019. How did I not know that? Probably because the thing next to the theater is still open. But they donated 42,000 videos to ODU's library, which is pretty cool.
So go to ODU if you want to see the movies that you were digging through at the store.
So You talk about Jaws in 1975. Movies have become, I think, just synonymous with date nights, having fun with friends, seeing something that's really unique, and it's all different types of varieties. What's interesting though is over the years, the consumption of movies and any kind of content has changed primarily online. And then COVID hits and people don't want to be that close to people. Where are we in the world of theaters? Like, I'm seeing stuff that's being pushed and it says something like, exclusively in theaters, where they're really trying to get people in there. Is that world coming back? What's kind of like movie theater? What is the state of the movie theater world these days?
I would say in flux, just because it's not set. It's not, back in the day it was, okay, it's going to premiere a wide opening this weekend. It'll run in theaters for 12 weeks. And then 6 months later it comes out on videotape or DVD or, streaming. It's not like that anymore. Some movies don't go out into the theater. And that used to be a taboo thing, or something that just wasn't what you wanted your product to do, because there's a little tinge of, oh, your movie is less than if it's straight to video, right? But now that's a thing where you get an exclusive deal with Netflix. That's a prestigious thing. So it's different for every movie and every filmmaker as far as what works for them and how your movie can succeed and best find an audience. Yeah. I love the feeling of going to a theater and seeing someone else's movie and that I know nothing about. I try not to read up on movies because I want to be surprised.
Right.
I have friends and family members who tend to say, "Oh, I just saw this movie and da 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 da," and I cover my ears and I run out of the room because I don't want to know, right? And I love seeing my movies in theaters as well, too, just to have that collective experience with an audience where you make something that moves someone to clap or to smile or laugh or be horrified or cry. Just people, I want them to be moved and to learn something and to experience that with a collective group. That's harder and harder to do. And we have to be safe, worried about COVID, worried about, our lives have changed and it's different, but I'm hoping we get to that point, and I'm kind of banking on us getting to that point this summer where it's okay to go to a theater. I've gone to a theater recently. There were not a lot of people in the seats. I don't know if you guys have gone to any movies recently.
I thought that it was really awesome when you could, for like $200, you could just rent the whole theater and
they were doing
private. That was awesome.
Oh, you did that?
Well, we were invited by some friends of ours, and that was a really cool experience.
And that might be the route that I take, where I pre-sell tickets and I, know everyone who's going in, their status, and everyone feels safe because they know everyone. That might be the way we do this at least for the premiere. It
is interesting how you think about the, direct to video way back in the day, and that was like a no-no. It's like, oh, that's a garbage movie. Those are the ones that you would find at, in the bin at Walmart, if you will. And now that's, direct to streaming. A lot of it's the same concept, but it's just interesting to think about that.
What was the movie I was just asking you about, or I just watched, Zach, with The Rock? That was the Netflix. It was the biggest.
Red Notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just. I don't know what the numbers are on something like that, but it's huge.
I think I think it was over 100 million, less than 200 million, something like that. But like big numbers. And what's interesting about that is in 2018, I think they spent $8 billion on producing content. I don't feel like I've heard that number again since. Yeah. So I think a lot of that stuff is starting to kind of come out. And what's interesting, I think, and maybe the Netflix creation of content versus just the normal, I don't know, the normal production companies creating this stuff is Netflix, I think, is okay with having some losses in there, kind of like a VC portfolio, if you will. Is the way that they're producing content very different than the way a normal motion picture production studio would be producing, where it's like, hey, we have 3 movies, these are the 3, they all have to work? Is there any insights on that, Butch?
I've just recently seen some numbers from, their streams. They hadn't released those numbers, like how many people were actually seeing these. We just hear Netflix just spent this much money this year on acquiring and producing content. Obviously, there's advertising that goes into that. I don't know the money behind that, but there's definitely quality content. It's not like there's any downgrade of content. There's some wonderful.
Is that, I'm just curious if has that changed your mindset, or just as that should move the needle just overall with production companies, because you have HBO Max, Amazon, Apple TV Plus, Netflix. You have all these streaming services that are just fighting, and it's all coming down to content creation. It's like, how has that changed the landscape of production companies?
I think it provides more opportunities. Back in the day, you were very limited as far as which movies get in theaters, which movies get acquired, where they're shown. And now with all these different streaming services, there's a home for everything. I made my second movie was Mother of a Day, which I crowdfunded on Indiegogo, made it with local 757 actors. And, we shot it for very little amount of money and put it in 3 theaters. And then it got acquired for distribution by Maverick Entertainment. And so it's available on all these different platforms. And, I can't disclose the deal we did, but for several years, money will be gathering. And at some point, it's going to make a lot more money than what it costs to make the movie.
So without going into the deep end of that, is it you get a royalty off that, or are you getting... So how does the purchase of that typically work?
So we got in advance, so I was able to distribute that to the cast and crew, and then they take out a marketing fee, right? So as every quarter, I get a profit or loss statement, and at one point the movie's going to make more than what it costs to market, and then we'll start seeing the income come in for that. But
it was interesting. I recently heard about how they did the Hangover trilogy. It was a three Hangovers, but movies. But though the main actors, they took an equity stake in the company of the franchise, as opposed to reduce the salary and the overall production cost. And wow, did that pay off well for them?
Yeah, and I'm working on that. I actually have Hollywood talent attached to 2 of my scripts, and some main people who've been in a lot of Hollywood productions, and they have agreed to read the script and liked the script so much that they put their name and said, okay, I'm attached to this role. And so as I look for funding for the movie, I can take out the pitch decks and say, hey, these people are willing to be in this movie without any money down and without any guarantee of what their salary is going to be. Obviously I'll have to close the deal when we get funding. But there are actors out there who, are not just in it for the money and want to make a quality movie. One of the scripts is a mysterious drama called Old Girl. It's about a girl who gets a year older every day. And it's just a very personal movie. I have a child with special needs, and we spend a lot of time in hospitals and with doctors. And, I just started keeping my eyes open to my surroundings and, came up with the idea of, what would happen if a child got a year older every day, and, they'd have to balance looking for a cure versus trying to live a normal life, and I think it's a very powerful story. and we have some name actors attached to that. That's the next one that I like to put out into the world.
I want to you talked about the shopping of scripts, and then needing to get financing. How is that process? I mean, we talk here on this show about raising capital for businesses, and putting your pitch deck together, and how many times you have to pitch before you get a second meeting, or even before you're lucky enough to even get a check. You're in the movie production area. I mean, it's like you're multiplying that by 2. Not only do you have to shop scripts around, and then once that happens, then you got to find financing for that. So is that 2 separate processes, 2 separate decks? I mean, I would love to hear more about that process.
Well, you know how I said that I don't wear hats, but I do. I wear a lot of hats. I'm the writer, so I write the script. I come up with the concept and write the script. And then I'm the producer. I'm deciding, okay, who do I want to get involved with this? Who do I think I have a chance to getting? You guys have probably heard of IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. There is a IMDb Pro, which is a paid version. You can pay a monthly or annual fee, and I'm not a paid spokesman for the company. This is just something that worked for me, where I have paid to have a subscription to IMDb Pro, and it opens up this whole world of email addresses and phone numbers to the agents and managers of actors and producers, anyone you want to know. I mean, obviously, there's some that are restricted. There's one of the agencies, CAA, it's kind of like trying to get into Fort Knox. It's that hard to get into CAA. So I tend to steer away from actors who have CAA agents, just because they just shut you down right away, basically. They pull up the drawbridge and you fall into the moat, and you have to climb your way out. You can't get there. So I stopped banging my head against that wall. I learned that early on, even though I did get on the phone back when I was younger and crazier. I got on the phone with a famous CAA agent for a very famous actress. Was actually talking to him about her appearing in my first feature, and my mind was spinning like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here talking with the agent for Natalie Portman, and he's seriously talking to me about her possibly being in my movie. That obviously didn't happen. But I've had those conversations, and you asked what it's like. It's kind of like going to the dentist and getting a root canal, and then the crown falls out and you got to go back to the dentist, and it's painful and it's tough, but at the end of the day you have nice teeth. And that's like putting out a movie. Probably a terrible analogy, but that's the first thing I came up with.
Well, but it takes some thick skin to go through that process. And that's, I mean, like entrepreneurship. I mean, it's just not meant for everyone. I mean, not everyone's meant to be a founder, and probably the sooner you find that out, the better off you'll be.
Yes. Right after college, I just started going to these things called bookstores. I don't know if you've heard of them. And just started buying I had every book about screenwriting. I loved movies, so I went to movies to study them. And then I read books about screenwriting and studied them. And I didn't go to film school. I self-taught. And I came out with my first script. And I will never show that to anyone because it is that bad. But I just kept writing scripts and kept coming up with ideas and getting closer to what I thought was a presentable product. And I grew up in West Virginia. So I was watching a movie with a couple friends, and a guy and his girlfriend, and she chose the movie, and it was a period drama called Washington Square. And all of a sudden I go, hey, wait a second. I went to school with her. And they're like, what? And there was an actress in the movie, Jennifer Garner, who I went to high school with. And I just was like, well, I have to put her in a movie now. How am I going to do that? Now she's in LA, and that's like a lifetime away. So I went to a Christmas Eve service at my church, went back home to Charleston, West Virginia. And after the service, who walks across the church to come and give me a hug but Jennifer Garner? And I don't know who was more stunned, me or my brother, who was standing next to me, like, why is this woman giving you a hug? And I said, I saw Washington Square. And she's like, you watched that? Because it's this period drama. Why would I watch that? And we just started talking. I said, I'm going to write a script for you. She said, okay. So she wrote down her address and gave me her address. And I wrote a script for her where I did everything I could think about. Okay, she took ballet as a kid. Okay, I'm going to make her a ballerina. I'm going to make her from Charleston. I'm going to, everything that I could think of that would entice her to be in this movie, I wrote in the script. And the first draft of that script was called One Bride for Seven Brothers. You might have heard of the musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Well, this is One Bride for Seven Brothers because it was a woman who had a lot of guy friends who were in a fraternity. So that was the brothers aspect of it. And she was so nice to them that they all held a candle. I don't know if you guys know what that means anymore, but I had a crush on her, right? So when they got together for the reunion, one of the guys was her boyfriend, and she got tired of waiting for him to propose, so she proposed to him. But if you've ever been in a relationship and you are not quite listening to the person who's talking to you, and then there's this pause, you might reflexively say, okay. So she proposed to her boyfriend, and he said, okay. So she thinks they're engaged. And then she goes to tell all her best guy friends that she's engaged, and they hear it differently and think that she's proposing to them. It got way too complicated with 7 guys, so I cut it down to 4. So obviously I had to change the title. So it turned into The Bride and the Grooms. And so the groom thinks he's a groomsman. The 3 groomsmen thinks that they're the groom. And there are 4 guys at the front of the church jockeying for position at the altar while the bride comes down the aisle. Here comes the bride, who is the groom. And that became my first feature, The Bride and the Grooms. And we shot it in 13 days in 3 states, West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and put it out. I got some friends and family to invest in it, and put it out in theaters in 12 states. And that came out in 2009. And, it was just an amazing experience. And as I, when I first told my wife that, I want to make a movie, her loving response was, "Who does that? You want to make a movie? Who does that? How are you going to do that? You don't have time. We don't have any money." Da 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 da. Right? But it was just the determination. Obviously Jennifer Garner is not in the movie. I sent it to her, and she respectfully said declined through her representatives. But
did she ask you what's in your wallet?
She did not. But
how long did it take you to write the script?
Wow. Well, first it was One Bride for Seven Brothers, and then I had to rewrite it. But it was a slow process. I was a newlywed with a young child, and we moved to Boston. I had a job at the Boston Globe, so we moved from Ohio to Boston. The Boston Globe did not provide moving expenses or health care coverage because it was a temporary job, but I wanted to work at the Boston Globe. And so when I make up my mind that I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And so we did that. And so while working at the Boston Globe, fortunately, I worked 4 10-hour days, which was a great schedule. You have 3 days off a week. So in my spare time, I wrote the script. And I just decided I'm going to make this movie. And so I hired all these local Ohio actors. It's a really sweet charming romantic comedy, if I do say so. But it was just so rewarding to be in the audience, just hearing the applause at the end, the laughter. It was amazing.
I was going to ask you that question. So you're okay with sitting in a theater and watching your own work?
I am. There are the cringy moments when I'm sweating. I'm like, I could have gotten a different angle, or the sound is not perfect, but it was everything that I could have hoped for. I mean, just for the amount of money and all the things that went into it, it was an amazing experience. So
I bet.
But directing is, it's like worse than a dentist. It's like climbing inside a washing machine and just getting thrown around. It's like, people are hitting you with questions and they want to know all these details, and you have to make your day and you got to do all this, and then you get done and you're like, oh, I want to do that again, right? And so it's a painful experience that when you get done with it, that's the next thing you want to do is make another movie. So I don't know how to explain it.
You've from the aspect of going from seven guys to 4 guys, from your time working in the press, in the media, what I hear from that, or when I see articles or I see some sort of content being produced, I think about people over complicating the thing that they're doing, right? When you can say something in 5 words, but you say it in five pages, people's ADD, the most popular YouTube videos, yada, 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 people overcomplicating content. As a producer of material, how do you kind of spec out your thoughts and then articulate it to be in the least amount of words possible, or the least amount of time possible, so that you will likely get people to stay there and to retain them?
It's a lot easier because I'm on both sides of the fence. I think it'd be harder to do it with someone else who wrote the script, but I'm not precious with my words. I think it was Faulkner who said, you have to kill your babies, basically, that, don't hold your words so precious that you can't cut them or change them. So it's just a matter of showing the script to people who are not just going to say, oh, you're such a great writer. People who will critically look at, people I know who will critically look at my scripts and say, that person doesn't even need to be in the script, right? So you need to surround yourself with people who will help make you better. And I think you need to do that, whatever business you run or whatever venture that you get into. You need someone to be able to, you have to be open to change, and you need someone who is willing to be honest with you about making that change.
From a critical standpoint, how do you recognize that person is making feedback that you should implement? And I'll give you the example. So you go to like a 1 million cups, or you go and you pitch your idea to any kind of business forum, and the person who's giving you feedback has just watched Shark Tank. They've never run a business, right? Or you don't go to your accountant and ask them a dentist question, or how to fix your washing machine, likely, right? But you get this information. People are providing information out, yet they aren't, quote unquote, industry experts, or they don't have any experience in that world. How do you, as you're looking for this critical feedback from individuals, recognize that person is telling you something that you should listen to?
Well, it doesn't have to be someone in the industry. I'm open to hearing from anyone. And, people who love movies, who don't necessarily make movies, know what they like and know what works for them. And so I am more than willing to listen to someone who just loves movies and has never made a movie. People talk about the NFL and their coaches who never played the game. And some people are critical that, why should I listen to this coach? Why are they a good evaluator of talent? They haven't played the game. Well, there are different things that they've learned along the way as far as scouting and evaluation, and sometimes having that different perspective of someone who's never made a movie and says, well, this doesn't work, or why are you doing this? What, this line isn't funny, or what about if you thought about this? So I'm constantly looking for people who are willing to put our friendship aside or our business connections aside and say, well, what do you really think about this? Does this work or not? You know, is this a movie that you would go see? And I send them my pitch decks. Is this something that, you know, I'm not asking you for money, but is this something that you think people are going to get behind?
I'm curious about the local area in terms of, are they supportive of the film industry? You had mentioned that you filmed one of your movies in 3 states, and one of it wasn't in Virginia. Is there a reason for that? You know, what is it like doing film in the local area and even in the state?
Yeah, the first movie I made, I was living in Ohio at the time, so that's why I shot it mostly in Ohio. When I moved to Virginia Beach in 2013, and I relocated my production company here, and I started working on scripts to make here, and I took a job at Hampton University to become a professor, and it really opened my eyes to the need for diversity. And so I decided to make a movie with a predominant African American cast. And that's when I crowdfunded for Mother of a Day, which is a family comedy about a man who forgets Mother's Day. And, you know, it's one thing to forget your anniversary because you upset one person, right? Same thing with a birthday. But if you forget Mother's Day, think about all the women in your life. Could be your wife, could be your mom, your mother-in-law, your daughter might have a child. So all these different people. So when he wakes up and realizes he forgot Mother's Day, he has to sneak out of his house and find gifts for all the women in his life and sneak back in before they find out. So I made that, you know, we crowdfunded it through Indiegogo. We shot it in Virginia Beach and Portsmouth, and it premiered at the Narrow. It also played at the Ale House in Virginia Beach and at a theater in North Carolina, because one of the cast members was from that area. And, you know, we had a very big crowd at the Narrow, and, you know, we had a red carpet that in proportion to the size of the budget. So I had a red handkerchief, and just a little rope, and so people would put their foot on the handkerchief and get their picture on the red carpet, with the hopes that the next movie, which is Kill Double Hills, so when we do that premiere, I'll probably have a red towel because that budget was bigger than Mother of a Day. But go ahead.
No, because I'm just thinking, you know, listening. I mean, the production, and a terrible pun, but I mean, the production to do something like this is huge. But in terms of like an economic impact for doing something of this scale, I mean, you have production crews and food services and sets and cameras and lighting and all. I mean, there's so many people that take part in doing something like this. Yeah, I would think that the local area or the state would be welcoming, you know, film here, film here, film here kind of thing, just in the sense of we have water, we have mountains, we have so many different things that you could probably do a lot of different scenes and a lot of different takes with all within Virginia.
The state of Virginia is an undiscovered gem. I mean, really, you have the mountains, you have the beach, you have the woods, you have the swamp, you have all these different locations and sites, historical sites where you could make a movie. And, you know, so I am constantly banging the drum, trying to get more movies made in Virginia and trying to, you know, raise the funds to make bigger movies in Virginia, because the state has so much to offer. And
yeah,
Wasn't what's that zombie show? Didn't a lot of that get shot? It used to be in Atlanta, and now some of it's being shot in Virginia. Like when I'm
Walking Dead.
Yeah, Walking Dead. Isn't that? Yeah. Because if you think about it, like maybe 10 years ago, I feel like the state made a really big push for alcohol to be consumed on premise. I guess that was some Senate bill. Can't remember the number. But that really, I think, pushed kind of the craft beer movement in the state of Virginia. Is there something like that that's being proposed or has happened from a film industry perspective? Because you hear people that are in your shoes that say, hey, we want to do more in Virginia, and it doesn't seem like Virginia is as welcoming as some of the other states. If you think about production, you think about New York, you think about LA, I guess a lot of stuff in Georgia. Is Virginia actively pursuing stuff like that? We just haven't seen it.
Yes, Georgia ramped up their tax credit. I mean, they offered an enormous amount of incentives for you to shoot there, and a lot of people shoot there. I mean, Tyler Perry has his own studio there, and that is something I hope Virginia will look at and go, oh, okay, we need to step up, right? They do offer production credit, but you have to spend a lot more, so the smaller productions don't necessarily benefit. So, I think there should be a 100% would be nice, but I think if they went up to, I think Georgia's maybe 45%, 40 or 45%. I think if Virginia stepped up their game, they would get a lot more business, a lot more TV and movie productions shot here. I think it would, if you have productions here, a lot of people gather, a lot of people spend money. It brings a lot of publicity to your state. I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think there's a lot over the years. I mean, you've heard me talk about this kind of just from the 1004 perspective of, create 1,000 companies with 4 employees each instead of trying to recruit 4 companies with 1,000 employees. And what's interesting to me is when I hear that, it's like I feel like Virginia and a lot of the localities in the 757 aren't thinking of kind of small business in the same way that many, I think, do think of a small business, right? They think of a small business as 500 people, because that's what kind of the cap is, where an independent filmmaker like you could have a smaller staff but make a big impact and people could really get behind it. And I think if there was more of those that jumped on board, you have a numbers game in that perspective. I mean, you're not everyone's going to be the whatever the biggest production companies are, but they can grow into them. And if you get a bunch of people that say, hey, go to Virginia, I think that can make a big impact. And so obviously I create a business around that kind of mindset. And I think it's an unfortunate miss often by the state of Virginia on stuff like that. And I think they should support it differently. I think they say, I think they're talking heads and they say one thing, but I don't think their actions actually push it. And now my rant is over on that, but I mean, it's unfortunate because not every big, these smaller businesses don't get the same incentives as some of these other ones, like you were saying. And it's like, hey, like we can make the same thing. We can still sell and be really big in this kind of case, but you're still attracting the big whale instead of a bunch of, minnows, if you will.
Yeah. Virginia, they'll give you a tax incentive if you spend, I think $250,000 in state, but there's specific kinds of spends. Well, I could make 2 movies with Hollywood talent for $300,000 each, but I might not meet the spend threshold that they have, and so I don't get the tax incentive. And I know people would be a lot more willing to fund my movies if they know, oh, we're going to get 25% off taxes on this. And I have old girl mysterious drama, and I have a crime drama called Chagrin. And Chagrin has 10 Hollywood actors attached to it. Old Girl has 2, plus the most successful Chinese composer in movie history attached to the movie. So, I have the opportunity to do this business in Virginia, and I would hate to have to go to another state just because it makes more financial sense.
Well, one thing that's a really, really cool company that you may not have heard of, but it should be on everybody's radar, especially if you have a really, really cool property that you own, is called Gigster, Gigster. And so essentially, so it's unlike, so think Airbnb, but you rent out your property. And so Gigster, they are the middle person. They work between the production studio and the owner of the property, and they do all the contract work. They do the before pictures, make sure that document that, put all the insurance in place or whatever that needs to be put in place. They move everything in, and then they make sure that the property is returned in the exact same fashion as it was before they came in. But people can list their own properties. So, and as all of this production is going on, you can search different production locations where crews can just go in and use someone's property for a weekend. They do all their shoots and then they're done. And it's super innovative, super cool what's going on. And maybe if more people in our area listed their properties as places that people could do shoots, that would be another way of bringing to light the cool factor of Virginia, if you will, from a movie production. But they do it for movies. They do it for TikTok, Instagram influencers. They do it for any content that's being created. And they're just growing like gangbusters right now because they're just totally disrupting that space.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I went out to, I found a lot of locations that allowed me to shoot on the property for free because they could market it and saying, hey, a movie was made here. And, that helps them draw interest in their property, whether they're renting it or they want to sell it. So right now I'm preparing to show Kill Devil Hills this summer, and I'm going to be pre-selling tickets. You can follow me on Instagram at Sumbadhat, Sumbadhat. And so we'll be announcing when tickets will go on sale for that. You can follow me on Twitter at Butch Maier. There's my spelling there on the screen. And we have a new Twitter feed at Sumbadhat Movies. So we're excited about this opportunity. But any advice I have for local entrepreneurs would be, if you want to start a company, start a company. If you want to be a screenwriter, start writing. You are a screenwriter. It's not on the big screen. It's on your whatever your laptop is or whatever it is. But you're a screenwriter. If you want to make a filmmaker, start filming. Okay, you are a filmmaker. And don't say, I'm an aspiring screenwriter. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur, right? Just start. Because you never know what, it might not work out, but you'll never know if you don't try, and you don't want to look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have started this production company. I wish I would have made a movie. Oh, I could have been a contender, right? You don't want to be that type of person.
On that same vein, I feel like a lot of people, even getting out of college, they're like recent grad looking for entry-level job in whatever. And I'm like, you're selling yourself short. You probably are better than a lot of people out there, but because of the way that you worded that, you look really weak. And I remember there was a swimmer that I used to coach swimming for 9 years, and there was a girl that I had taught swimming forever, and she was at JMU, and she had a really nice resume from a journalism perspective. And I remember as she was looking for a job, somehow we were talking, just catching up and stuff. And I looked at her LinkedIn. I was like, you look really weak in this, but you have 4 years experience of doing actual journalism stuff. You should probably tweak that to not make it look like you should be making $17,000 this opening year. And I think she ended up getting a gig in Washington, D.C., which a top 10 gig out of college. I mean, that's unheard of in journalism world.
It's a difference between looking needy or looking like someone needs me.
Right. Exactly. So you have interviewed, how many people do you think you've interviewed in your life? Hundreds, thousands over the years? Thousands. Sure. What's it like being on the opposite side where we're asking you the questions?
It's a little daunting because we did not script this. You guys are asking questions that I was not prepared to answer, but this has been really enjoyable, and I appreciate this opportunity, and being able to think about things in a different way. So it's nice not having to think of the questions, right? So I'm just you guys have to worry about what you're going to ask, and I just take it in and respond. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I mean, I appreciate the authenticity in the sense that, like, to me, listening to you, you can hear that your passion that you have for doing the things that you're doing. I mean, it's just so, but as when Zack and I opened up the show at the very beginning, just like as me running 9 miles this morning and Zack getting ready to go out there and do the same thing.
Also
and,
9 miles.
And you get up every morning and you have your list of things that you have to accomplish every day as well. So it's
I do not run 9 miles.
I technically have not yet either.
But in the sense of the equivalent of 9 miles in the production world,
sure.
Maybe it's 9 pages of a script that needs to be written, whatever the case might be.
It's actually 9 projects. I have 9 projects in the works right now. I'm writing a musical called Head of the Company about it's about office discrimination shown in an amusing yet thoughtful way. It's a comedy, and these cards right here are some of the beats. You won't be able to decipher what it means, but that's basically the story right there up on the wall. So writing a musical, even though I do not play an instrument, I cannot read music, but I'm making it happen. And this is an expansion of actually the first movie I ever made was a short called Head of the Company. So I'm expanding it from a short into a feature musical. Old Girl, which has Hollywood talent attached, is a mysterious drama. Chagrin is a crime drama, which I have Hollywood talent attached. 5 Gold Rings is a Christmas wedding romantic comedy, which, I mean, Christmas movies are huge right now. Wedding movies, everybody loves weddings. And then the romantic, okay, a lot of people like weddings. Or
I think weddings are the most ridiculously overpriced thing in the world.
Okay, true. But it's a great thing for comedy. So
Wedding Crashers is probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
There you go. And then Meatloaf. Yeah. So I have Shooting Star, which is an action comedy about a middle-aged actress who is so desperate for a movie role that she takes the movie set hostage to play the part. Oh. And that is, I'm close to getting a deal for that script. Jonah, which is a modern-day version of Jonah and the Whale, which is a bit more ambitious than any of the projects I've done before, but it's out to some Hollywood actors. Kill Devil Hills, which is coming out this summer. I'm doing a sports documentary that I can't disclose the topic, but it's about some famous people. I'm the producer of.
In what sport? Can you say that?
No, that will give it away. And then Mother of a Day is still on streaming platforms. You can rent it on Prime, or you can buy it. It's on Tubi. It's on several other platforms. You can watch it for free on YouTube, even legally. And so that's 9 projects that I have that I'm trying to juggle while having a full-time job.
How do you do that? Do you segment, like, I'm going to do 30 minutes a day on all 9 projects? How do you?
You see the bags on my eyes?
I was wondering what those were. Okay.
Yeah.
So now,
I do not sleep much. And, some days I don't work on movies at all. Some days I work on all my movies at once. And I call them movies, even though right now most of them are just scripts, because they are movies. They're movies in my mind. I know how I would shoot them if I'm blessed to have the money to go out and do them. And I'm, this is just a passion I have, and I want to tell stories that move people to smile, laugh, cry, scream, whatever.
Is writer's block a thing in this? Like when you hit something, or you try to push through it? Like how do you? I mean, with 9 different projects, just move on to something else. Like how does that work for you?
That's it. You have 9 projects. You have writer's block on this script. Well, I'm just going to something totally different. So
yeah, I mean, and I wanted to follow up that to go a little bit deeper on that in terms of like, we talk a lot about the sense of community where we can laugh together, celebrate together, cry together, drink together, whatever the case is. With you here, you're kind of like by yourself. Where do you turn to for that sense of security to not sense of security, but sense of community to pick you up when you're feeling down or to celebrate? How do you manage that?
Well, there's something called the Virginia Production Alliance, and that's how I contact most of my local actors. And so I've built a community from the 2 movies so far that I've made here, and so just staying in contact with them and having them audition for projects and meeting new people that way. I'll reach out to people on Instagram who are like, "Are you really a film producer, or are you hitting on me?" "No, I'm married. I'm not hitting on you. Do you want to be in a movie?" Says, "You're an actress. This is not a joke." So I have people audition, and they send me, they make their own video and send it to me. So it's not like I have to set aside time to go and meet with people and audition. If they want to be in the movie, I'll send them a scene, they'll record it and send it to me. And yeah, it is a lonely process when you start out as a screenwriter, and it's like, is anybody going to see this? Is anyone going to believe in this? But then you find people.
Trust the process, right?
Yeah, and just keep making pitch decks and send them to potential investors to say, "Hey, do you want to take a chance on this?" And so if you know anybody.
My last question is, what did you learn from being a reporter or in the media that has helped you in your own business?
I would say I learned how to think ahead. When you're a reporter, you're thinking about who are the different people that you need to interview, who are your sources, asking questions. I became mentored by a very successful screenwriter who was from Cleveland when I was working in Cleveland, who has made several big movies. And he took me under his wing, and he said, he was the one who suggested, "Hey, don't make a feature, make a short." Okay. And so I made a short. I made Head of the Company, and it was 29 minutes. He said, "It's great, cut it in half." Right. Make it shorter, make it tighter. And so it's fun, whenever you want to aspire to be something or someone, always reach out to somebody who's been there and has done that before to learn what the process is. You say, trust the process. So you have to learn what the process is. But people don't think that you can just go into it blindly and just make it up as you go along. Of course, creativity, being creative and being willing to do different things sometimes helps. When screenwriting books say, well, the midpoint is on this page of the script, and this is when the inciting incident happens. And of course, if you write like a robot, your movie's going to look like it was put together in a factory. But if you can just set aside those rules and think, okay, what's my story? What feels right? What's the next scene? What can I do to engage in audiences? Just be open to doing something new.
And that's appreciate. I mean, it's just so many times, but I find myself being so much of an audience member, listening to and learning so many new things, and this show is certainly no different. So I really appreciate all the insight, and I took away a lot of information on this. I look forward to rewatching and re-listening to this episode again, and appreciate everything that you shared with us today.
thank you both for your time. I really appreciate this opportunity.
It's been awesome, Butch. Have a great day. We'll chat soon. Thank you all for listening. Subscribe if you liked what you just heard. And if you didn't like it, subscribe anyway. Thank you very much.